Well, hello, and welcome back to the channel. It's been 9 months since I posted my last video, which was on the $98 Walmart mountain bike, the Decathlon Rockrider ST100. Did a few videos on that. That bike was $98 on a special, I don't want to call it clearance price because they're still selling those bikes at walmart.com. And it was an actual Walmart item that was available in store as well as on their website, sold and shipped by Walmart. And you can go back to my videos and look at some of my comments on what I think about that bike, which for $98 really was quite a good value for a perfectly functional, solid bike. Now, I've sold that bike. It's been a few months ago, and then last couple months, I've been settling into a new house. Before that, getting ready to move, all that good stuff. So, been away from doing the YouTube bicycle thing for a little bit, and don't typically post that often anyhow. But anyway, I wanted to follow up previous videos on that ST100 thanks to a viewer who tipped me off to this bike. So I want to give a shout out to AlphaFan90. Had been very active in the comment section on my previous videos, which I very much appreciate. And basically, we had just kind of a short conversation. They had mentioned that the bikes that Decathlon sells in the $500, $800 price range typically are pretty good value for the dollar. And I had said that if they ever do a clearance price on one of those, I would definitely look into picking one of those up. And again, very much appreciate AlphaFan90 for sending me a message recently letting me know that there were $150 bikes available. Looks like it was both on Walmart and on Decathlon USA's website. So interestingly enough, Walmart just had this one extra large, not quantity of one, but they just had their extra large size frames available for this clearance price of $150. Decathlon USA had a couple of different frame sizes, I think small, large, and extra large. But when you order through their website, they were going to charge me $100 for shipping, but on Walmart.com, sold and shipped by Decathlon USA, but no shipping charge. So I literally paid $150 plus my local sales tax, $162 and change. So here we are a few days later. Bike came in today, which pretty good shape. Box, no major damage. I was a little worried because the shipping said they had to relabel it a couple of times on the way, so that always makes me worry that the bike fell out of the box. Interestingly enough, it had been taped up top and bottom, and on the bottom, the staples were undone. So maybe, I don't know, everything was in there, didn't have any issues, there wasn't any damage to the bike, so very lucky there, especially since FedEx was handling it, and I've had a few issues with them over the past beyond what I typically have with UPS on shipping bikes. Whole other story right there. So let me just move on to the bike. So if you recall, or if you want to go back and look at the other videos, that ST100 was very basic 21 speed micro shift derailleur system, twist shift, rim brakes, but 27.5 wheels and aluminum frame. So on the surface here, there's not a ton of differences. You've got 24 speeds instead of 21 speeds, and you've got disc brakes, but still 27.5 wheels, aluminum frame. Dig a little bit deeper, and the differences really start shining through. Now, just so you know, I've made a couple of changes already to this bike. I just could not help myself. Those are not the pedals that come on it. I bought them because they kind of match the green, and it doesn't come with a bottle cage, and it doesn't come with these ESI silicone grips. I put those on there, but I'll show you the stock grips and stock pedals in a minute when I show you all the stock parts that come with the bike. So again, aluminum frame. Yes, they both have aluminum frames. This one appears to be a little bit better made. Weld quality on that other bike and the paint quality on the ST100 were pretty decent for, again, especially $98, but that bike retailed for, I believe, $399. This bike either retails for $499 or $599, I have a hard time believing that the difference between this and ST100 would only be $100. So I'm leaning towards $599, maybe being the original retail price, but Decathlon lists the retail price currently at $499. So take that what you will. Straight steer tube, so you don't have a taper in the steer tube, which is what you're seeing more commonly on bikes today. Kind of a little bit more old school geometry on this bike, but for its intended purpose, no big deal. Really nice manipulated shaped tubing, not just regular like round tubing. This is kind of squared off, and you've got pretty cool looking dropouts. That's a replaceable derailleur hanger as opposed to just a solid piece of aluminum for a tab for where the rear derailleur bolts to on the other bike. That's replaceable for a reason. If you break it off, you don't ruin the frame, and you can buy a replacement derailleur hanger that is usually pretty cheap, a lot cheaper than replacing the frame. So those are the differences in the frame. Suspension, a bit different. So this has a suspension fork that is branded B-Twin, which is Decathlon's kind of sub-brand or secondary brand. Interesting looking fork. It reminds me a lot of a Manitou fork with the reverse arch. Some people might think that this is on backwards, but it's intended to be on the back side of it like that. And this is an 80 millimeter travel fork. So typically you're seeing bikes today coming with like a 100 millimeter travel fork. But when you're looking at bikes that are sold at like Walmart, Target, a lot of times they don't list a travel specification. Usually those things only give you 40, 50, maybe 60 millimeters of travel. This is significantly better than that. You've got a little bit wider stanchion tubes, which are these tubes, than what the ST100 had. I think those were 25 millimeter. This is 28 millimeter, so a little bit bigger, so it gives you a little bit more stiffness. And this fork crown right here is a lot beefier, so that's going to give you a lot more rigidity and stiffness. And you've got this adjustment knob. They call it the weight adjuster. On the top there, it gives you the weight in kilograms that you're setting the rider weight for. So I think 105 is the maximum setting. I've got it just below that. It goes down to 55 kilograms. So 105, what is that, 230 pounds? 55, I don't know, 120 pounds. We don't do the metric system here in the United States, as we should. Anyway, disc brakes. These are mechanical brakes with 160 millimeter rotors front and rear. They're actually made by a name brand, Hayes. They appear to be an original equipment, i.e. slightly cheaper version than the retail purchase version of the MX5 mechanical disc brake. But overall, really, decent quality brake. You'll notice I've got some blue rotor bolts. That's another thing that I added. It just has silver rotor bolts. But you can see right there, it's upside down, but it says Hayes on the caliper, and may not be able to focus in or see that, but yeah, you kind of can. It says Hayes stamped into the actuation arm there on the calipers. So cool that they were putting like a name brand brake on it, even if it is a fairly inexpensive one. Your wheel set is a double wall rim with eyeletted spoke holes, which helps prevent those spokes from pulling through or cracking around those holes. It's a reinforced eyelet. And then just generic non-branded quick release aluminum hubs. Those were a bit tight. The bearing preload, especially on the rear, way too tight. I had to adjust that out of the box, and so that's one reason why, even though these are a direct kind of to consumer model, it's not really sold through a retail outlet where they're going to check the bike over like you would at a regular bike shop. It's a good idea when you buy a bike like this, if you're not qualified and you don't have the tools yourself, to go and have this thing checked out by a person that knows what they're doing, make sure everything's set up properly, because again, the hub bearing preload was too tight. The brakes needed to be adjusted because they rubbed out of the box. The wheels, fairly straight, but did require a little bit of minor truing. I do have, it's an older one, but I do have a nice Park Tool truing stand that allows me to check on things like that. So those were kind of the main things. The drivetrain, the shifting was spot on out of the box. That was good. So haven't really had to mess with that. And moving up here to the cockpit, you've got an aluminum 31.8 diameter handlebar. That's oversized compared to your old standard of 25.4 millimeters, which is what the ST100 has. That's also a steel handlebar on the ST100. This again is aluminum, so a bit lighter and a bit stiffer. Pardon me, I got some dryness in my throat, having a hard time talking. Anyhow, so these are just a little bit better quality components. Also, the bars on these are 680 millimeters wide. I think they were 580 or 600 millimeters wide on the ST100. So quite a bit wider, which is going to give you a little bit more leverage for the trail. That's still not nearly as wide as what you find on modern trail bikes, such as on my Specialized Levo. That's 800 millimeters wide, which is pretty wide. I may cut these down later, but I've been trying them out at full width. Anyhow, back to this bike. This is what we're talking about. So aluminum handlebar, aluminum stem, aluminum seat post. Does have height marking lines on there, so you can keep track of where you're setting that, especially if you share the bike with somebody else. And we got a saddle. It's a saddle. It's okay. You do have kind of some witness marks there from where stuff was wrapped around it in the box, kind of creased the cover. Maybe that'll come out. I don't know. I mean, it's just cosmetic, but that's probably really the only damage that I've found on this bike. So it was in quite good shape. Drivetrain wise, 21 speed on the ST100, twist shift, micro shift components, which, yeah, they're okay, but this has got a little bit nicer stuff. SRAM X3 rear derailleur. Again, 24 speeds, so you got 8 speeds in the back. That is a SRAM branded cassette and a SRAM branded chain. So they're using name brand stuff there. Now you come up to the front here, the crankset, non-branded. It's stamped B-twin on the back of the crank arm. I didn't even pay attention to the length of those crank arms. They're probably 170 millimeter. That focuses, but yes, 170 millimeters, so pretty common there. And that's a micro shift front derailleur. Back up to the handlebars, you probably already spotted the trigger shifters with their SRAM X4, so it's actually a higher level shifter than what's on there for the rear derailleur, which typically you see a higher level rear derailleur used than the shifter, but that's okay in this case because that derailleur is going to work just fine. And these are pretty decent shifters. They're not super high end, but again, a lot better than just a cheapo twist shifter. And then I forgot to mention your brake levers here. They are unbranded Tektro levers. So nothing fancy, but pretty decent. Feel nice and smooth. I've got these adjusted pretty well for nice light touch here, and then everything engages pretty quickly. So I like my brakes where you don't pull the lever a whole lot before it engages. So yeah, overall, that is the bike. Let me just show you real quick what comes in the box. So these are the original grips. They're kind of a rib style grip, just a slip-on rubber grip. Nothing wrong with them. I just prefer the ones that I put on there because that's what I've been running on a lot of my bikes. These are the pedals that come with them. They're just a plastic body with an aluminum cage and then a plastic toe clip. No straps. They're not designed to work with straps. It's just kind of a place to put your toe. I would take those off because I don't typically like those, but these pedals are pretty small and I've got big feet, so I put larger platform pedals on there. You got a toolkit. It's got a pedal wrench and then 3 hex wrenches, 4, 5, and 6 millimeter. These are the stock rotor bolts that were on the bike. They're just chrome silver. I put those blue ones on there just for a little bit of bling. And then you've got your instruction booklet. And then inside the toolkit were the assembly instructions. Nothing too detailed. It's more just pictures of what you got to do. And I highly recommend if you're going to assemble a bike yourself, go online, Park Tools website, and their YouTube channel has a lot of resources on bike assembly, so I would start there. But again, there's some nuanced things that require special tools that you're going to want to probably have somebody do for you, or you can always invest in a decent set of bike tools and learn yourself. That's basically what I did over 20 years ago, and I work on most of my own stuff, especially more simple stuff. I don't do suspension work, but basic assembly and tune-ups, no problem for me at all. So I am going to ride this bike some, come back, do another video, and discuss kind of what my thoughts are about how the bike is compared to that previous bike I did videos on, the ST100, as well as maybe comparing it to what your other options are out there that are kind of in this sub $500 price range. Somebody that's going to be kind of looking into getting started with mountain biking. That's kind of what a lot of people sort of set as a price point. You honestly don't get a whole lot, but there are some interesting options now, especially at Walmart. So Kent, Ozark Trail, these are brands that you're going to see at Walmart, and they do have some decent looking bikes that if you go online, you'll start seeing reviews for the Kent True Veil and the Ozark Trail Ridge 29, and pretty positive reviews on those things. And honestly, I was very interested in trying out specifically the Ozark Trail 29. Even went so far as to go purchase one at a store in the box, put it together, and I get to basically the last step, which is for me putting the pedals on. And there's threads here where the pedal threads into, of course, and that bike had no threads. They forgot on the manufacturing line for that part to thread that hole. So I ended up just taking the bike back because I was like, I don't have time to mess around with trying to get a replacement part. But I still really was intrigued by it's a $398 retail bike, or $399, and it has available frame sizes to fit different height people. It's a 1x9 drivetrain, which is kind of what you're seeing on most mountain bikes, where you have a single chain ring up front, and then you've got a relatively wide ratio spread of gears. This is a 12 speed, but this is what you see on higher end stuff. But the concept is the same, as you've got just one single ring up front and a wider spread of gears in the back to let you go up hills, but also still have decent amount of like top speed for going downhill or just pedaling along on the flat. So anyhow, that's what you're typically seeing on bikes. So the fact that this has a triple chainring drivetrain is a bit old school, but this bike also dates back a few years, so that was more common back then. And of course, that's what you would expect to see, and that's probably why the bike is on clearance, because everybody's moving more towards the modern style of mountain bikes. So for $150, I'm just going to say right off the bat, it's a fantastic deal. This would be a great bike for somebody that's just going to ride around the neighborhood, do some very light trails, get some fitness riding in, whatever it might be, short of doing actual like regular mountain bike trails where you're actually getting off and doing some harder stuff. So I definitely recommend this bike just based on that. If you're able to pick one up for a decent price, Walmart did sell out for the $150 price with free shipping. Decathlon still has a few of them in stock. Depending on where you are, it may cost a bit of money to get it shipped to you because they do charge shipping. For me, it was about $100 charge. So of course I went with the Walmart option because $150 versus $250, no brainer. Awesome deal. We'll see y'all back here soon for a follow-up video, but I appreciate you watching. Please like and subscribe, comment, ask questions, very much appreciated. And y'all keep the rubber side down.